Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Welcome back to the ESA Cup Season 7. We are back on to Group A for our first match. We have AGM versus Element. I'm here with Naj. Naj, how are you doing today, my friend? Good to be
Doing
back with you.
fantastic. I am vibing. I am. I say this. I'm literally sat here trying to get the ESA Wikipedia up so I can talk about numbers.
Yeah,
That's pretty much my entire thing right now.
we've definitely got a lot of stakes as this is the last standing match for Group A, at least. So pretty much two teams, at least, this is their last chance, and we'll kind of talk about that in a second. Right now, Pulse Nation and AGM taking up the third and the fourth slot, which is our first matchup. But Sevens Esport creeping slowly behind. So whoever loses this, as long as Sevens Esports is able to win out their match, they have a very good chance of coming back and taking one of those slots and moving over. But if Element loses their match, they will still be secured. But or they should be still secured. But as for the rest of the teams, they're going to be kind of screwed, or at least 7 Esports, for trying to make their way back in. It's very close. It really depends on this first match for what the stakes are and who's going to be on the chopping block for the second match. That's really what it all comes down to, is those round differentials. Tell me, Naj,
Well,
what do you think about this situation?
I mean, it's as you said. It's like the round difference means that if AGM lose, um, and sevens win, then sevens steal their spot. But if AGM can come out with a win, they win. Like they're fine, they're clear, they're sorted. If they kind of go to if they go to overtime, it's a bit more of a risk because it's like you lose overtime, you're scared because
Yeah.
it's like you've got to pray that sevens either lose overtime or just lose outright. And if sevens come out with an overtime win or just a win in general, um, then they take your spot, and that's where it gets scary for a team like this, especially in fourth place, because this is the week where you kind of start questioning your ability and whether you're actually able to maintain the position you're in and move forward in the tournament. Because if you're not, as a fourth place team going into the next stage, you're going to be struggling because it's like the way the bracket works. It means you're going to be against one of the higher level teams,
Mm-hmm. Pretty
and
much. Yeah.
that's a big deal.
No, absolutely. The way I kind of look at it, honestly, is that whoever, or pretty much whoever loses between AGM and Pulse Nation, assuming Sevens Esports is to win the match, is pretty much going to get knocked out. That's how that's going to work. I mean, obviously, if Pulse Nation wins against Sevens Esports and they don't win this out, then it doesn't really matter. AGM and Pulse Nation will be securing their positions regardless of who wins or loses, for the sheer fact that Before Effect has forfeited, meaning Minions defaults their 7-0. They forfeited, I think it was earlier today, if I'm not mistaken. So pretty much the only thing really at stake is if Sevens Esports wins, and depending on how they win, who gets swapped out in that place, Pulse Nation or AGM. And that's what we'll have to see for tonight. But before we get into that, let's take a quick look at our teams, our players that we will be having for tonight.
Well,
So,
on the
you got
element
it.
card, we have Shimizu, we have Zoro, Strobo, Reclay, Yannick. We also have Daniel, Glazary, and Always. And that's sort of like the general like amalgamation of people. None of it is really like confirmed as to who's going to be playing, who isn't, that sort of thing. I could probably have a quick look through, and I can tell you now that like Reclay is playing, Strobo is playing, but who cares? Realistically, looking at the teams, their best map's Oregon and their worst map's Bank. We'll take a look at the other team and then we'll quickly go into our map bands. So let's have a look at the other team.
Yeah. And for AGM, we've got Ollie, Quake, Suthers, Larian, Vapes, Spencer, Zora, and Sacred with their best map on Consulate and the worst map on our Clubhouse. And for the last team's best map, they were actually on Oregon, which we'll see how that helps them in just a second. But before we get into that, we got the vote up as well. A social vote of 40% in favor of AGM and 60% in favor of Element, which I don't think that's going to be a coincidence at all. And you'll see why once we get into the map bans in just a second. But tell me, Naj, what do you think about our social vote here? And do you think that it's going to be as close as the votes show? Or do you think we might see a possible blowout from Element?
Oh, it's to be entirely expected. I think Element absolutely smash AGM at the moment. Like they're looking very on form. AGM are kind of struggling. Came into this tournament as one of the teams that people said that you would want to look out for, and they've just really not shown the fire that you really expect. And realistically, at this point in the tournament, yes, it's do or die, but I really don't expect to see it. Looking at a team like Element that they're coming up against, they're the second place team. They're one of two teams in their group, and one of what, four in the entire tournament that have double digits in points right now, and they're against fourth place in their group. Like there's realistically not a chance. I don't see this going much further. Realistically, I see this being like a 7-3, 7-4 game in favor of Element, especially with how our map bans look.
Yeah. Yep, as we've discussed before, Element's best map is Oregon, and that is exactly what map we will be playing on. We'll be on Element with AGM starting on the defense here. Or, I'm sorry, Element will be starting on the defense if I'm reading that correctly. So, yeah, we're looking at a very dangerous steamroll situation for AGM to put up with. And this is the thing I want to point out because I've kind of mentioned this before. One thing that Element has as an edge, which I think is kind of like that breaking ground for being really high level, is momentum. How do you handle momentum? Do you know how to stall enough to reposition on defense to curb that pacing? And do you know how to ramp up and put the defense in such a bind that they're basically sitting there trying to wrap around their head what is even
Well,
happening? And I
I
think
think
Element's got that.
I think the thing about it that we've got to really, really take into account right now is the actual strength of Element, because it's like with AGM starting on the defensive half, they're gonna want to try and weasel a few of these rounds in order to be able to secure themselves a victory and like actually be able to push this forward on the attack. And at the moment, it looks genuinely possible. Like if you look at AGM score lines over the last couple play days, they have a 7-4 in their last play day against Sevens Esports. Alongside that, if you go to Element, they have very close scores on Oregon against every team they've come up against. Sevens Esports was 7-5 in favor of Element. Pulse Nation was 7-5 in favor of Element. They're the two teams that are either side of AGM, both in third and fifth. So realistically, this could be a very close game. It could genuinely go their direction. The only team Element have lost to is an overtime loss versus Minions, who are at the top of their group. And that is difficult to really gauge skill level wise, because you've got Minions, who are yes top of the group, but they've also lost in overtime to Sevens, who are fifth. So you don't really know what to expect from a lot of these teams, and I think it could genuinely be an AGM game, but I really don't see more than a 7-4 with the performances I've seen from both of these rosters.
Yeah, I think the main delineator here that's going to separate who comes out on top, if and one of the other important things really is how they're feeling this game. Are they warmed up? Do they have the right mental, the right approach? Are they working together as a team? Is their team chemistry good? Pretty much all the mind games of playing Siege, I think, is going to be an important factor because, as you've mentioned, Minions has lost to I believe it was Sevens Esports. You said. And a difference that massive, especially when it comes standing, that just comes down to Sevens Esport having a really good game and Minions having a really bad game. And I think that that situation is going to have to be what comes to fruition for AGM to consistently win this out. Otherwise, it's either going to be really close or Element is going to outright take this. I personally
I think
am thinking that's how this will play out.
I think there's also a level of inconsistency there for Minions, because Minions obviously as a lot of us know, are a new roster. This org won ESA last season, but they've come together, and the only person they've got that's the same as their previous season roster is the captain. So it's like you're kind of in this position for Minions where they're not yet fully comfortable because it was their first Playday that they lost, so they weren't fully comfortable. They weren't ready for that game, and as they've gone through the tournament, they've just gotten better and better and better, both in score lines and in skill level. But we are going to be heading into the game. One last quick thing I'd like to touch on: this is Element's best map. If we see them come out of this with a loss against AGM, this is where we're going to start to get scared.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a high stakes situation if that ends up being the case. But honestly, my main thing, like I said, that I'm looking forward to is how will we look standing wise prior to Seven's esport. I really want to see if they have a chance at a comeback, because if they do, that's where really it comes down to who is going to be able to hold that third place for Seven's esport to hop in.
We
That's
are
that's
experiencing a
the
little bit of a delay right now. We were hopping into the game, but we're going to be doing that in just a few seconds.
yeah.
Nothing major.
It ain't
But
a host if there's nothing going wrong. That's Ubi
yeah,
for you.
we are going to be hopping into it now, though. Having a look at this ban phase very, very quickly. We've probably missed quite a good chunk of it, but I'll quickly run through what I can. And well, as we are just waiting for the reconnect, we will just take a look see at what we have. All right, so right now we do see the first ban going out onto the Ying is going to be one of those operators. I've said it many times. I'll say it again. A nuisance, a huge, huge nuisance on this map. Like, she's terrifying to come up against. That alongside things like the Blitz and etc. etc. But realistically, on attack, we're probably going to see a Flores. We're probably going to see a Habana. Something sort of denial, like utility denial oriented. And yeah, there's the hard breach. More than likely, a bit more of a target ban towards the opposite side of AGM, because they probably like to run that Maverick and open up those hatches using that method. But it does leave Thatcher on side, it leaves Habana on side, and that sort of combination is going to be able to get the hatches anyway. Moving on to our third ban, we are going to see Solace go off the table. She's busted, let's be real. And for our final ban, realistically, I expect to see something along the lines of that entry denial. Something like a Fenrir, something like an Azami, maybe even a Mute, which I've seen from a couple teams in a couple different leagues. But something along those lines, maybe even Intel based around like that Valkyrie, but we do see Fenrir go off the table, and that's the entry denial I was talking about. So moving into this match, a very standard lineup. The only real peculiar ban is Maverick, and we'll see how the attacking side do decide to work around that.
Yeah, we'll just have to see how that is going to play out. We'll be starting over in Laundry Room Basement. A pretty safe start, which I think is going to be probably the better call. Like I said, it takes is one attack round win, and all of a sudden you have a massive steamroll. And I feel like that's what they're kind of going for, is trying to halt that. We even see a lot of these kind of stall compositions that really slow down to push to a crawl, like Mira, Azami. That's pretty standard in trying to prevent any kind of momentum, which that's really the main thing. So I say we can expect an anchor heavy composition here coming up in just a second. I mean, we have witnessed that in a lot of recent matches where teams played in basement. A lot of teams just anchor, hunker down, let the teams get their setup, and focus on denying that initial drop in through those funnel points as much as possible. But we've also seen just as much of shield players also breaking that as well, those choke points, and creating extra tension that anchors just tend to struggle with, where roamers could have been invaluable. So, but we aren't going to see a shield this time around, though. So it'll be
one thing that is very, very good for this side on the defense is the fact that, well, Oregon Basement is argued to be the most defender-sided site in the game. And with that being said, you've got to be very confident coming into a match like this, coming into a match where you're allowed to start on defense, even against such a formidable team in your group. So looking at the side of looking at the side of AGM, they are going to be wanting to try and open up with these early engagements, deny any of that intel that they can, and they have managed to take out 3 drones so far. 5 still in pocket. Oh no, never mind. 2 still in pocket, 5 on the ground, and it looks like we are going to be seeing a bit of intel going through into this kitchen. The Azami's going to be spotted out in green corridor, just backing off as Flores is going to be deciding to make his way through and see if he can find anything. But Sacred finds one for himself with that shotgun on the freezer stairs.
Yeah, so far with a minute in hand, that early pick just making this push even more difficult. Warden going to be catching out. That flashbang still up, trying to push up onto elbow, but they do have another swing close to the door, but going to be able to make it out. However, tries to swing out while Flores is still wide out in the open. Going to be able to take that one. That's going to be huge control into freezer to create a pinch here. With most of the roam presence pretty much cleared out here, that's going to give a lot more opportunity to set up. But with the time that they've got remaining, they have to get moving, because remember, they still got Nazami on the board and Amira. Those barriers and windows are going to just stall time massively here. Going to hold back the diffuser, try to get rid of this utility. That's going to be almost Amira popped, but unfortunately, Mute Jammer's going to be able to catch that. With a minute remaining, with this anchor heavy setup, they're going to have to create a pressure point at some point, but they are still struggling on those choke points. We're going to see one try to push through. Zombie going to shut that down. Good luck, taking a lot of damage here. Trying to push down blue stairs, but will get caught out on the head height holes. 48 seconds, and so far, it looks like any attempt at an execute through these choke points has been a complete failure so far. And with the time they have remaining and the person disadvantage, they've got to get through. And so far, 2 attempts, both unsuccessful. And I feel like we're going to see that cut out once again. 30 seconds on the clock. Going to have to make a push through bunker. So far, playing very passively here. This could be the opportunity that Flores needs to make something happen here. Not really encountering anybody so far. Could possibly catch someone out here. Pushes out at just the right time, but with the crossfire onto the bomb site, it's going to make things a little bit trickier. Still got to break through the zombie. Still got to break through kitchen hall. Catches Mute for a little bit of damage here. Not going to be able to do much in significance. Tabana going out, and Flores will be finished out shortly after, thanks to his zombie and multiple picks there. That's going to be the first round for AGM there, actually.
Well played. Managed to keep their active utility alongside that Azami, or upon that Azami and Wamai alive for majority of the round. So you saw most of those discs go down. You saw all of the Kiba barriers be deployed, even with how aggressive they were in the early round. So I think that just the ability to be able to get out of these sort of sticky situations that Suther ended up getting himself in, or be able to get yourself back into the site even after taking an aggressive engagement, really gives you, well, like the Azami did in kitchen, really gives you that sort of edge to be able to have that confidence against these people. As we move in, there's
moving back
not
into
really much going on.
Yeah, now we're back into bunker bedroom, which, yeah, playing it very safe as far as side picks, but eventually they're going to go into first floor at some point, and when you know exactly what they're going to be going for, you're going to see a dramatic change in composition and a lot of confidence coming from Element to be able to take at least that round. But then again, at the same time, going, you know, round one every 2 rounds lost is not exactly a formula for success, at least for Element here. But hey, it's still better than nothing, though. And still, AGM doing really well to pick up their first round already. So, I mean, not doing too bad, at least on the defense here. But as I always say, defense is one thing, attacking is another.
Yeah, tale of two sides. When it comes down to the defensive side on Oregon as a whole, you are heavily favored. This top floor site is, well, really good for the defenders. You've got the basement site, which is argued to be the best site on the map, or the best site in the game, sorry, for the defenders. And then you've got things like these two mid-floor sides, which are relatively 50-50. Both can go really well or really poorly, depending on the team and how they decide to play. And Nade tries to go out from Finker's hand, but instead she gets caught by a gun from the man swinging out of security. We're going to see a little bit more of a tussle go on this big window as one man trying to make his way up white stairs instead opts for the nade from below. Nade goes up, finds the frag. Reclay finds one, equalizes the man count, and now we're going to be seeing a bit of stagnation from both of these sides as they just try and like clear out these mute jammers on the games wall and also just get themselves some utility thrown in through that big window, the man in through armory, and just see if they can get these pinches.
Yeah, right now the pace slowing down after losing a player. Looks like we're seeing a bit of slowdown on AGM trying to stall this setup as, right, or perhaps not, as Vape's able to pick up one, but a prompt refrag from the freezer stairs. Gonna hurt that setup a little bit more, but at the cost of losing one more player than what Element lost here. And with the push out from Attic, it's now all the way up to Soother. After we see Ace just waltz right in, and they know exactly where he is. Gonna have to make a move. Eventually, the flashes come out. Shots coming in from Shimizu, but Strobo will be the one to finish off Soother there. Cut off all the way in bunks with nowhere to run, nowhere to hide.
These were my. He didn't have nade denial. He's
a whole lot you can do there.
He had discs.
Didn't use them though, did he?
Oh, he could have. That's the issue. Realistically, I think the entire sort of premise of that round going bad was entirely down to the overswinging of the defenders, trying to take too many engagements, basically thinking that you're bigger, biting off more than you can chew. Put it that way. Biting off more than you can chew because you're just kind of struggling. You're taking these swings, you're getting caught by like multiple angles, you've got that nade below that came in through the holes that were pre-made by the Oryx beforehand, and now you're down players, you don't really know what to do, you've ended up in a 1v3, and your Wamai stuck with discs in pocket, unable to actually do anything for himself.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like the aggression, the initiative to try to or mitigate those setups wasn't exactly the worst move because of the control they had already established prior to unsuccessful roaming. You kind of had to try to make a move because once you had every wall open, every corner accounted for, it would be even harder to, you know, take a move or push a move onto Element there. But what just happened was they lost too many, and then in that gap of positioning as a result of trying to take that initiative, we saw Shimizu waltz right in and nobody was ready for it. That's that, like I said, that's that motion of momentum that Element knows at least pretty dang well, as we could see from that last round. So AGM gonna have to think twice here if they're gonna do the same thing again, trying to play a bit more in the initiative of trying to deny Element setup. Ain't gonna be going out, not catching anyone so far, still holding, trying to spot anyone out that they can outright get rid of early on before any kind of actual execute. Although we do have Larry trying to hold out for that nade, waiting for it. Yep, and he does find Reclay before being able to throw that nade. Looks like that clear going quite in favor of AGM here, but not before Soother getting caught out by the Finka. Complete opposite what happened last time. Quake trying to take some aggression once again, stalling that push, was stalling that push. Going to be falling back onto site here as Roamers has pretty much done their job here. 1 minute and 30. Now it just comes down to the setup and the execute, which Element still has a ways to go here.
I mean, yeah, with these 4 defenders on side, you're not too afraid yet. You've only really lost your sledge, which is a relatively worthless pick. You've lost a couple nades, but I mean, realistically, those nades were just going to be used to try and find picks anyway. So losing a player for another player isn't too bad. And then when it comes down to the rest of the players remaining as a whole, you've taken out the Wamai, which is active utility. It's a man that needs to be alive in order to be able to regenerate and use his utility, and that's him being dead is a very big deal for the defenders. You see another frag go the way of the attackers, but they find one in return. We're going to be seeing a bit of a 2v3 here as it gets minimized to a 2v2. Vape finds one for himself. Going to be fighting the Sphinker on white stairs and able to find it as of yet. She's going to be trying to take the peeks through the white wall holes. The player on Attic going to be trying to take the swing onto Yana inside a trophy. She falls, or he falls, as Yana actually succeeds. Now we're going to be seeing Vape in this 1v2. He's going to be hiding in that default corner as he's going to be just trying to take the swings. Throw that C4, manages to find the Yana, but loses out to the Finker. That's going to be the round over in favor of the attacking side of Element.
Yeah, problem was definitely overextending there once again. They had Element cut off there. They were stuck in Trophy. They were stuck in White Stairs. They didn't really have anywhere to go. All they had to deal with was that rogue Element, which they did successfully clear out. And after that, AGM pretty much had it against Element as long as they covered each other and repositioned based off whatever utility Element threw off. They should have had everything they needed to finish that out. But unfortunately, that's not what happened. We saw the swing into Attic head height, not go into the favor AGM. Element able to take that out thanks to Yana there. And from there, we saw the Nitro, but the prompt race swing was just too much for Valkyrie to fight back against. And that's really what happens when you try to over-initiate in denying the attackers from getting past those choke points. It's a good move, especially if they're not anticipating it, but when you've already kind of made your presence known, maybe it would be best to fall back and help your teammate in case White decides to push out and then stack up later on, because now Yana's going to be scared and backed off, but that's not what we saw there, was it?
Well, no. We are going to be going back down to the basement, though, and that's going to be pretty favourable for them. They obviously managed to secure themselves a win before, but it wasn't as convincing as it could have been. They did lose the Warden very early inside the freezer as he was trying to keep a hold of those freezer stairs because it is a relatively default position for a smoke, a mute, or even the Warden himself if you do decide to play around it in that way because it doesn't bring along his own utility. It's all active. And he can be quite aggressive in that position because of the ability to just avoid flashbangs, but Thatcher comes through, NMD manages to find the kill onto Vape, and now we're going to be in a bit of a better position for this attacking side. They're going to be able to get themselves a third round here by the looks of things as they find one more, killing off the mute. And, I mean, finding the Wamai is really good. Finding the mute don't really matter that much, but, I mean, it was a nice wallbang anyway, and now you're up on the man advantage. The Warden's going to be trying to assume his position, but not going to be able to find anything as of this moment. And, I mean, now there's a bit of stagnation, but it's really just to bait out these picks because they know the defense is going to get aggressive. They know they're going to want to try and find a returning frag, and we'll have to see if they can actually come out with something.
No way. Oh my gosh. Still manages to get it. Oh, but refrags over to Freezer. That initial entry denial from the defense not paying off very well. As you said before, they have gotten so much impact, but still an uphill battle trying to fight this off. The shotgun coming in from Warden, able to take out Klezery here. Now all up to Thatcher and Grid here. We're all by Laundry side, but still kind of grouped closely together. We're going to see a bit of a rotate here. However, Mirror will be able to catch out Gridlock here. All going to be up to Thatcher as AGM have done a really good job of turning this around here. What potentially could have been a really bad situation from how poorly the initial entry denial went for Wamai and Mute there, but still able to turn it around thus far. And now with a minute remaining, we're going to see a massive rotate from Thatcher, just trying to flush out these positionings just enough to be able to create an opening in order to finish out the Mirror. Because remember, she's very low here, but the Pre-Fire is going to give away her position, or give away his position here. Mirror knows where they are, or both of them know exactly where he is here, holding close to freezing. With a shotgun in hand and a Mirror window, it's going to be really difficult for him to find some kind of opening here, because you either have a Mirror window looking right at you, or you have a shotgun awaiting fate. And with not much utility to be able to contest that, he's going to be a lot of trouble taking a little bit of wallbang damage here. Warden still waiting close to the shotgun, trying to pre-fire him out. Does successfully get it, to my surprise. Able to take that shotgun pick out with a very nice pre-fire. Now it's at 10 seconds on the clock. So you're going to have to hunt down Mirror here or go for the plan. But he doesn't know the Mirror's right behind him, coming all the way from the laundry hall to finish him out. Had no idea that she was coming that way.
Yeah, Larry just absolutely played that perfectly. Like, there was no occasion where the Thatcher was even at all looking at his direction in order to be able to get a bit of damage off on him at any point. Realistically, we saw the Thatcher trying to come in through Freezer. And every single time that man looked away, the Mirror was just on it, trying to take a peek, getting a couple bullets in, not really trying to look for the frag, but enough damage to be able to clean up from long range. And that went really, really well for them. They got him down to half HP. They moved out into that more open area. Obviously, the Warden struggled in that gunfight and probably could have pulled the trigger a little sooner if his reaction time was a bit faster. But realistically, when it came down to it, Larry had the nuts and bolts to be able to take the initiative in that engagement and actually find the kill for himself on that rotation.
Yeah, no, I mean, pretty much what you said, and I just want to say that Element did such a good job at first. Their initial entry went great, but man, did their execute just fall apart. I mean, we saw that AGM once again when it comes to taking the fights that they need to prevent those funnels, they're willing to take them, but this time instead of it backfiring, it paid off very well in outright shutting down that freezer pick and isolating each of those attackers as they went down that narrow corridor. And pretty much the rest was history, like you said. I mean, we saw the laundry push also backfire, just unable to deal with that Mira. And I mean, they had a twitch too. That was kind of the big problem, is they had a twitch, but sent that drone out too early, allowing Mira to shoot that out outright. And they even were getting the hatch too. If she just waited a little bit longer, we could have seen a completely different story with that closet mirror outright being destroyed, and that would have saved
Yes.
so much headache for Element in that funnel break. But with
Well,
that being gone, she was way too much of a thorn.
the biggest thing for AGM right now is the fact that you're on your defensive half, you're on Oregon. You won the first round going into that basement site, which is argued, as I said, to be one of the most defender-sided sites in the game. And you're now going through a 4-site rotation. You lose upstairs. You choose to go upstairs again. You lose again. And then you go into the basement and win again. So now you've got 2 more sites that you have to win. You can't go back to this basement in this half anymore. You have to win the next 2 sites if you want to, or like one of the next 2 sites if you want a somewhat fair standpoint going into your other half, and you want to win the next 2 sites if you want to be able to go in with a reasonable scoreline for the attack on Oregon.
Yeah.
So realistically, you've gone through a 4-site rotation-ish. You haven't even played the 2 mid-floor sites, which you're now going to do. And you're 2-2 so far on your defense on Oregon. It gets pretty questionable at this point because you don't really know if they are going to be able to pull themselves out of this for the win.
It's really hard to say, but honestly, I'm a little bit worried for Element though, because as a contrary, because what we've seen in the past is that Element knows how to attack. They are very strong in getting themselves fast, initial entry in very favorable terms. They pretty much had the full perfect package for attacking, but their executes are a wreck. Although we will see a back to forth on that initial entry right there, but kind of
Not
proving what I was talking about.
For the side of Element right now. Like, I'm not worried. Like, realistically, there's not. If they win this round, there is not a chance that the side of, or well, the opposite side should be able to win. Like, if Element come out of this with a win, and then they go into their defensive half at 3-3 at worst for them, there's not a chance they lose because they're showing so much more dominance. You're equal footing at the start of this half, and realistically, once you go onto your defense, you're just going to be even more dominant because of the favorability.
Yeah, I think that would definitely have to be the case. If Element, yeah, they're able to consistently pick up the defense rounds, and you're absolutely right. I don't feel too confident in AGM's attack, but at least as far as this half year, I think AGM has a good shot of ending out positive here because, as we've seen, their execute is not that good. At least it hasn't been for several rounds here, and when they do lose a rounds, that's exactly why they cannot get an execute going. Those funnels break them. However, they are doing a good job of breaking on first floor as it's a much more open site, able to pick up a double kill here, and now the pressure is all the way on to Kitchen here for Vapes to try to make something happen, but gonna get caught out by the Osa stuck in a corner there.
Yeah, it's just wild. Like, you're now on the attack in the first half of Oregon. You're up 3-2. You're just not afraid of the rest of this game now. You just play your game and you win.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that can really happen for the side of Element. They've gotten their advantageous half because anything above, like realistically, a 3-3 scoreline is a comeback if you're switching onto that attacking side on Oregon. You're looking at if that's considered a comeback, and this round gets won by Element, it's borderline done. There's nothing you can really do to fight against it. Like, obviously, we've seen worse in other games, stronger teams, whatever. But it doesn't happen every day. And when you're struggling this much, or seem to be struggling this much, especially when you can't even see a drone that's sitting in front of you on top of a water cooler while you're stood in kitchen door, yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, AGM's not looking the greatest here, especially with them picking up that round, because like we said, like I've said, funnel's their weakness, but when you go first floor, Element has way more options to push through, and like you said, second floor and basement, as far as that goes on execute, it is kind of a given on defense if you're not able to push through that, which Element's shown multiple times that they struggle with that, but when they're not on that, when they're not on a first floor site, Element takes those, and they took that in violent fashion like we saw last round, and I feel like we're going to see that again now going back on first floor, because there's so many more avenues. You're not stuck. You can try to make a situation in which that's the case, which is exactly what AGM's trying to do here with the castle all the way in security, but with how we've seen Element able to set up early on, that's going to be an absolutely nothing. That's not going to be anything. Unless AGM is able to take initiative and get early picks that they need to take out key players in their composition, Element is going to have all the opening they need to really get going here. And we're going to see a push into Attic here, pushing out the Wamai, who's still mid-reload, able to catch another into Bedroom there. Taking two very early picks. Rump, they're going very well here, but Vapes still trying to hold Kitchen. Going to fall back to Kitchen Hall. Castle going to get cleared out. Thanks to Ram here. Now a 2v4, however, not without a clap back from Vapes. Going to take Osa out here. Starting to damage that execute. That's what we've seen again. Vapes going to try to hold on to Kitchen, recontest it with a Kiba barrier. But how well that works really depends on the vertical and how much damage gets done there, as we still have one above. And that is going to be Ash holding that hatch there. Going to do some massive damage onto Mute, but not able to finish it before the reswing with the SMG-11 from Mute here. This execute's not looking too good here. Lot of lives lost here on getting ready for that execute. Their cutoff potential is now pretty much gone here. If any point is the point for AGM to pick up a round and even out into a 3-3 split, it's right here. However, with Ram onto site, she's in prime position to get a plant, although there is one on the rotate. It's going to be able to catch him on the rotate with a body shot, and now the plant going down. Vape's going to have to take some initiative to swing this diffuser to deny it, but going to be too late. However, we'll be able to catch a headshot, but the security refrag going to shut them down before they even get a chance to really go for a defuse there. That even out is not going to be happening this time. 4-2 swap.
Well,
you called it.
I'm going to have a kip. I realistically don't see much else happen in this game. For anyone that isn't British, kip means sleep. Or
that
nap.
was specifically meant for me, wasn't it?
No, I realized like after I said it how many like Europeans in the chat may not understand what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's it's just not winnable now. Like you've gone onto the defensive half, right? Even if it goes the exact same way, they're guaranteed winning basement. Like it's not likely that the attacking side, no matter how strong the team is, whatever else, with a decent setup, there is not a high likelihood at all that the attacking side win a basement defense.
Yeah,
Not
it's
likely because of the way the map's built, because of the way the site's played, because of the positioning that the defenders have, and then you go into these sort of mid-floor sites that can be a bit more of a wild card for some teams because some teams can be really strong on them, some teams could be like awful at them. But then you've also got this upstairs. The upstairs, it's a very good site for the defenders, and realistically, you should have been able to get at least a win on one of those upstairs holds, but you weren't. So now you're in a position where you're down 2-4.
oh no.
You've gone on to attack. You've got the BDS roam that's standing in front of you. You've got that one man on top floor, the man in security watching underneath big window and on that door. You've also got the man standing in freezer stairs to defend the corridor. So you're looking at a roam play on such a sort of bunker heavy site that is a very one-time sort of thing. Roam play. You do see the Kevi repelling upside down on that double window, finds the kill onto the Jaeger that tries to take the swing. Shimizu going to be down for the count. And now, we do have an advantage on this attacking side, but advantages are kind of worth nothing unless you can really get some footing into this round. You've managed to find yourself a kill. It's onto a passive utility player. A player that is literally just a roaming gun because his utility is just placed and done. And now you've got to contest against these two players that are still hovering around in security and on those freezer stairs. You do manage to find a kill through the vertical angle from that bedroom. That's very good, but the Ash going to be taking the swing onto the corner, doesn't quite find that kill, as instead she finds a shotgun shell to the face. Now we're going to be seeing him back off and move into the final half of this round.
Yeah, not looking the greatest right now for Element here. They've taken a lot of losses here, especially not being able to hold on to some of those funnels. We see the aggressive swing from Morden not going to pay off as Dekebi will be able to shut that down. And now it's all up to Mira and Mew here. We've seen this setup be absolutely deadly for AGM here, but now with Element, really all depends on how they're able to take their initiatives to push these guys out and not overexpose themselves. Because we got one that's already low, a quick flick, able to take one out, but Natro trying to take another out, not going to be successful here. Hibana going to be able to push up. We see another pick, the refrag come in, Hibana able to shut down by waltzing right into the larger room, and that's going to be AGM's first round for this half, as they look at a potential comeback, but they've still got some ways to go here.
I really didn't see that happening. I've just talked so much smack about how good defense is on Oregon, and they're really just throwing me out the window. Like, they're throwing me under the bus here. Like, you can look at pretty much any statistic, and like for site percentages and win rates and stuff like that, and they'll tell you that Oregon's a very good map for defense. And the fact that we're just not seeing that in this game, and it's almost inverted, is insane. Like, I don't think we'll see it continue. But then again, I could just be caster cursing it.
It's possible. I'm very bad about caster cursing. I had a team that I was pretty much consistently, anytime I would cast their games, they almost always lost. And it was kind of a running gag. They would get into like qualifiers and eliminations, and I'd tell them I'm going to go cast their game so they can lose. It was pretty bad. I never casted a game that they won. It was the caster's curse for me. But with that being said, yeah, it's very strange how inverted it has been. But I think it really comes down to the fact of the attackers on both teams are giving way too much control on their initial setup, especially when they're anchoring heavy. Just the free amount of setup that they're giving is allowing for a reverse sweep. And we're seeing a lot of cases in which the anchors will overcompensate by trying to take the fight to them in relatively open spaces and pretty consistently lose out. And it's been causing a lot of problems to where the remaining anchors either have to hope that the attackers botch their execute or something. But we are going to see the Maru run in, but Jaeger is going to be ready to catch that out. Already another loss with Mute down, as well as they start to lose that elbow control thanks to Blitz. However, the swing from Jaeger once again going to be able to catch another, but going to see 2 downs here. However, with Nook still alive. Yep, triple kill. They're going very wrong for AGM there. That bunker push completely collapsing. So now it's all up to Nook, but with her stealth, she might be able to sneak around with not much other than default cameras, but she doesn't really have that silent step anymore now, does she? And with diffuser all the way in bunker, they know that she's eventually going to have to push into dangerous territory, especially with smoke still on the shoddy. She's going to have to push out the Mira here and try to catch smoke out in the open, or there's going to be no chance here, which I think is going to be the case in this round.
Oh, a beautiful shot onto the Mirror, though, to clean her out. And now we're going to be seeing an engagement against this smoke. He's going to be running away past the Mirror window, keeping himself safe. But he has a soft wall between him and the knock. If she just takes a clean pre-fire, she is going to have a nade cooked in hand. It gets thrown over, doesn't quite find the mark it's looking for. But he is going to remain close. Please, just take a pre-fire through the wall. Yes! She finds the kill, and that's going to be another attacking win for this site. And I'm genuinely blown away. I couldn't be happier right now to see a bigger upset and a bigger fight against my prediction.
Yeah, right now it's looking like a massive upset here. I mean, that is not something that you would have expected there, and definitely not the way you want to play that out. Mira getting flushed out there is very unfortunate for Element, as now AGM is looking in prime condition to really put Element at a run for their money. This is what I was kind of talking about before. You know, attacking is one thing, defending being another, and you know, these overly aggressive denials are continuing to cost, but Element, they're hurting even more, as now they are pretty much evened out 4-4. And if Element cannot find a way to properly cover each other and lock out the attackers, it's not looking good for Element. We could very much see an upset and watch as AGM take this, because it's not looking too good right now. Not at all. Being all the way back to 4-4.
I am loving this for AGM right now. Looking at the way they're playing and how they've been sort of structuring themselves throughout these rounds, even though their bunker push completely fell apart, I feel like they've been watching a few of the VODs in preparation for this game. I feel like they are very well prepared for this game, and they were very well prepared for it to go to Oregon. And looking at just the way they played as a whole, they knew that this team would want to play Oregon, because I mean, they've played Oregon 3 times, right? Like, why are Element not going to want to play Oregon? They've played it 3 times. They're obviously confident on it. They're obviously strong on it, considering they've got 2 wins and 1 overtime loss. And they've clearly, on the side of AGM, just watched these VODs, dissected the strategy, been able to sort of pin things down for themselves, and putting themselves in a position to actually be able to pick apart this defense, and it's going so well for them right now. As much as it was a bit of a struggle last round where they had that knock in a 1v2, they were able to find it due to a beautiful, very clean headshot onto that player that was hanging around on the bomb chassis, and also the quick little pre-fire through the wall on the smoke that was hiding in the corner. I am very, very happy with the way AGM are playing this right now.
Yeah, the way AGM are doing exactly what they need to be doing to counteract Element. They are punishing them so hard on their setup, which is something that Element had a lot of problems with. That's really the difference maker there, is that not only can they get their setup and not get bound by Element trying to counteract that, but also they're able to execute, even in clutch situations like we've seen there. AGM keeps that up, which they have the momentum to keep doing that. They always seem to find a way to catch Element off guard, then they've got a very strong chance to win this. They have the information on exactly what this armory guy is. The nade does go down, going to do a lot of damage on a Warden. Not going to catch him, though. However, will eventually get caught out thanks to the armory push from Ash. They're going to be able to clear the Warden out. That's going to be a massive early loss, as now Thermite's going to be free to flash however he pleases with no one to be able to see it. He does spot out the main player there, Jaeger. Still trying to get more information. Does catch the player in Classroom from below. Multiple picks going out to completely destroy that attic push. And with Thermite down, it's now all up to Buck. I'm telling you, this is what they do so well. But we will see a double kill from Suther. This time around, Element really punishing that push so heavily. And yeah, that setup was a complete failure for AGM, losing out massively. However, Suther, not done by any means, getting a lot of setup, trying to push out an attic, just has to isolate 1v1 here. But here's the problem. You've got close quarters and you got 2 shotguns to play against here. With hard breach charges, it's going to be a very dangerous situation here, trying to pick apart somebody as they're both going to be holding close, except for Mute, who's a little bit farther back in games. If he goes that way, that could be the opening, especially with that skeleton key. He has everything he needs to even out the playing field here, but gets caught out on the rotate with a little bit of teabag from the Thorn.
Yeah, I wanted to try and take that engagement against the Thorn, shotgun versus shotgun, but wasn't able to find it in the end. But now we're going to be seeing probably a little less confidence coming out of AGM, but still really wanting to fight tooth and nail for this win. And I mean, with how well they've played on the attack so far, I don't see why they can't and why they realistically shouldn't have that confidence. They're playing incredibly right now, and I mean, if it persists, it could be a real terror coming into the next stage of the ESA Cup.
Yep, absolutely. It's looking really close right now, but like you said, AGM a little bit shaky here. As you've said before, they've lost out that round in quite a disastrous setup, trying to get that control of attic. They got caught out so badly by Element here, and now that momentum has essentially been reset, which with how close it is and the amount of rounds still remaining, that is going to be what potentially could be the game changer right there. We could already see the end of the game here just by what happened last round, thanks to shutting down AGM there, because their defense was really scuffed, but their attack, they have came back. But for Element to be able to pick up a round mid-half with as many rounds remaining as there is, that really could set the pace here for Element to finish them off for good. But if we see a successful recovery for AGM, we could be seeing an overtime situation, which could complicate the standing situation for whether or not Seven Esports will be able to come back into the qualifying for stage 2 of this season.
I do want to say the way that the defense is playing right now, the way they've played this basement site both times, is with this BDS roam. You can't play this BDS roam as a default strategy. You have to play it as a gimmick, because if you're playing it as a full-time strategy, you're gonna lose. Like you could bring a fuse and just place it on that big window and just do it a couple times and you clear out security. Like it's wild that at the moment we're just seeing these players just go for the same strategy over and over again. We are seeing Shimizu play around in this attic. They know he's going to be upstairs. He took the swing off the big window last time. And realistically, there he is, finds the kill onto the Ash. The refrag's there for the Dekebi, and now we're going to be seeing an equal man count on both sides. This shotgun is going to be thwarted by a nade that just goes quickly in through the door and finds that kill. Now you've got to clear out Pleasury. Very easy to do. You've got these vertical angles on the door, so he can't take an aggressive swing. And you've got a choice of either flashing him out and taking a swing, or just get a nade. And he's done. He can't do any more. He tries to take the swing onto the hatch, almost gets caught by those vertical holes in the bedroom, and instead decides to fall off. Now we're going to be seeing these players just hovering around on site. This Twitch drone still alive inside of that drone hole there, and is going to be trying to hunt down for these mirrors.
Yeah, right now, and especially with the mirror being broken down too, they've got plenty of opportunity to walk in, and Nook will take just that, being able to get rid of yet another player here. As right now, Element just trying to find some kind of opening to take an attack. Will be able to clear out the Nook here, but not before the refrag from the prompt push, thanks to Dekebi here. Now with a 1v3, got a player pushing up from Freezer here, trying to take this fight, gets isolated out. Plant now going down with a Nitro still in hand. Could throw a Nitro, do some serious damage, but is going to check over the back when no one is at. Plant's being canceled, not gone down quite yet. Going to restart that initiative. With the Nitro still in hand, Mira could shut this down to swing for the bomb chassis coming in from Twitch. Not going to be able to stop it. That long range F2 really does go burr there. Being able to shut out Mira for AGM to catch right back up to a 5-5 situation. We're really looking at an overtime situation as we get further into the game.
And as we know, if AGM win, they do qualify themselves for the Swiss stage. But at the moment, we are just looking at a bit of back and forth, a bit of this tug of war from these teams. And I am so amazed at how well both sides have been able to play attack on Oregon. It's one of these maps where it's a real struggle. And with how they're playing it at the moment, it just doesn't look to be the case. The discipline to be able to sit there and obviously bait the plant the first time, but actually commit to getting the plant down the second time while relying on your Twitch to cover against those three angles is absolutely phenomenal. Like, you know where this player is, you know what he's doing, and you know exactly how to deal with it. And I think that really shows the prowess of this AGM attack right now, and something that I genuinely didn't expect from either side, let alone both.
Yeah, honestly, AGM has been very adaptable thus far in how they execute. I mean, we've seen how they took a completely different approach to clearing out security and freezer. They knew that there was going to be players there from Element and punished that so heavily. The nade clearing one out, the refrag onto Jaeger, the successful push onto freezer, the refrag from the swing all the way freezer. I mean, they pretty much cleared out because Element was doing the same thing and they were able to punish that so well. But do not ever sleep on Element's ability to really flush out AGM when they are priming for an execute at that transitionary period. This is where Element sweeps the rounds, but right now that is just not happening. And we're going to see a clash from Element as well.
Like this.
I guess they are trying to change things up. Very much an interesting pick here, but whether or not that pays off, I have no clue.
Well, they put out a gimmick that the opposing team isn't prepared for, and I think that is like the big deal here, because they're gonna be trying to take this push that they've won every time so far onto the basement, but instead this time they've got to deal with the Clash, and the Clash is one of those operators that isn't a huge threat, but is also at the same time a huge threat if you're not prepared to deal with it. And
she can absolutely beat Nightmare Fuel.
Yeah, that's kind of where we begin to struggle. So with her staying hidden throughout this prep phase, obviously getting those hatches but not really being seen, and this mute sort of hovering around inside of Big Tower, staying on the mute jammers just to make sure he can't be called by the Kebby. Also, obviously there isn't one on side, but either way, he's just preparing. Alongside that, having this mirror on site in order to slow things down. You've got the mute trying to take the peek onto the man that's going to be trying to enter through garage. Obviously they're droning right now, but you've also got the Cade to slow down the hatch control, which, I mean, as I said, Thatcher and Habana, exactly what's being brought on that offensive side right now, and it's just so clinical, so easy for them to really dissect this round. The only major factor that they have to deal with is that clash.
Yeah, but you also got to keep in mind, like you said before, there are some major information gaps that are playing against AGM right now, and you've got such, standout characters that you have to really think about how you want to approach them, such as Clash or the Cade or the Mirror, like where those things are. That's going to create a major problem. You got to be able to take out one from Kitchenall. That's going to be the only set of nades out, and with a double kill as well, that's going to be a huge loss of destructibility with Ash and Nook both off of the board. That's just going to make a push out against Clash even more difficult. Although they still got needs on the board, it's going to be an uphill battle if they can even get close to sight in the first place with a minute remaining, and Clash hasn't even really been acknowledged yet. And when she does, boy, is it going to cause havoc in how
Their entire
AGM plays this
execute is
out.
still on side. As much as you've lost your entries, you've still got your entire execute. So I think that we're not exactly do or die for the side of AGM.
How about now?
Right, now
with
we
a
might
Nitro pick. Yeah, with a Nitro pick out doing some serious damage. However, gonna be able to get that revival there, but with that revive, they know now exactly where AGM is gonna be coming from. It'll be through this meeting all hatch or through blue stairs. And with 25 seconds, they either gotta make a choice to commit or they're gonna have to make one final rotate to get caught out. And dealing with a Clash on that funnel is just gonna be a nightmare. We're gonna see a triple kill thanks to Mew still holding out those blue stairs. And Nitro onto Meeting Hall, going to be able to take Twitches or Thatcher as well. Now it's all up to Hibana with 8 seconds left on the board, still stuck above, no way to jump down, and with a Clash still on the board, it's going to be a dunzo round for Element to be now
Save
at
KD.
match point.
Yeah, it looks like we're saving KD right now, boys, running off into that small tower area and just keeping ourselves safe. Clash still had the shield in pocket, if anyone noticed, throughout the remainder of that round, and decided to place it down in the middle of sight right at the very end in the last 5 seconds. As we move into the next round, I realistically don't know what to expect. We have the side of AGM, who have to find a round win here. Now, they have done so well to claim 2 of the 3 basement defenses for themselves on attack. And when it comes down to how this is being played at the moment, we move on to overtime if they're able to find a win on what is arguably one of the weaker sides for the defense.
Oh, I mean, I don't know about weakest, but it can definitely be really...
No, I said weaker. Not weakest.
Oh, weaker. Okay, I was about...
the basement.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I thought you said weakest. I was like, whoa, I don't know if I would go that far. But, yeah, it's definitely not going to be as much of a secure round as we saw last time. So it's going to be a lot closer. But, like I said, the thing is, Element wins this if they can punish AGM setup. AGM wins this if they are able to get a successful initial entry and are able to get close enough to execute and cut off Element. These are the vital signs of who will come out on top here from what we have seen from both of these teams. And from last round, they won thanks or no part to Mute's absolute ballistic plays in denying that blue stairs, not even giving a chance to use that push as an option. And if we see that again, then yeah, that's it. But with it being a much more open space, it's really hard to say, as Element hasn't really opted for as heavy as a roam. Really, neither of the teams have. And if any map is the map, or if any site's decide to catch someone out in the open, it's going to be on this map on the roam. But I don't feel like we're going to see that from Element, and that could possibly hurt them. However, despite that, we will see Jaeger able to take out Sledge very early on. That's going to be 1 set of nades gone, but with 2 more still on the board, it's going to be a difficulty as Jaeger will eventually get caught and down over in Classroom thanks to the Thermite, but not without suffering major damage. Warden trying to take an initiative as well, but also getting caught in split as well. 2 people sent out for an initial entry denial to lobby. Both those people not going to be able to come back onto site for an even weaker defense going forward. But so far, still a little bit close on the numbers with a 1-person advantage. Still very doable if one person's able to come out and really show some impact here. That's going to be Thorn with the shotgun, going to catch one out by the window with that good old M870 that we don't really see a whole lot anymore, at least not in PC. But love the M870 regardless. With that pick onto Grid, looking a little bit better here, but still another one by the window. Really could be...
We are just seeing a bit of a creep up on this side, just to see if he can actually find anything for himself, and now it's going to be a bit scary for these defenders as we are left with this 2 versus 3. He's found the Thorn, and realistically all you've got left is this Frost. You've got this Mute, but the Mute quite easily isolated if you're able to take multiple angles at once, considering he can't fire too much in many directions unless he whips out that SMG-11 and starts doing spins. But with this C9 in hand on the side of the Frost, she's going to be trying to find it. The Thermite going to be opening up the game's wall and just
no.
trying to get more angles, but with the Mute Jammer being there in the way, they're not going to be able to find it yet. They get the injure, but no confirmation as we move further in, and the swing onto the trophy door means the Mute falls. Now we move on to sweet, sweet overtime.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Element, they lost way too many. I mean, I kind of called it, the calling cards of each team's rounds, but I don't think AGM is out of the woods there. One thing that I have said before, is that on the first half, their attack was abysmal. They really, really struggled when they were on attack. And now, with that being the case, I'm sorry, I believe it was actually on defense. Their defense was abysmal. And with that being how they secure it, I'm not confident they're going to be able to do that here. But unless Element really fumbles a bag twice in a row in getting one of these rounds on basement, which is all they need. They just need one basement. We know they can do that well. We know they can punish heavily whenever AGM attempts to set up here. But if they are not able to pick up this basement round, either this time or the next time, they lose. That's just how it is. They just will not win this. But that's kind of what they need to do. But as far as on the swap though, they'll be fine. I'm not worried for Element, but this right here is going to be what breaks them. So I don't think by any means AGM is out of the woods. They may have gone to overtime, but if they cannot win on their swap, they're going to be in a lot of trouble because I doubt Element will whiff their defense twice when they have basement on the board. I don't see that happening.
Oh, like 100% I can see it happening twice. It's happened already this game. It's like all it takes is a very good open from the side of the attack. And I mean, with them sort of being on that arguably more favorable side, considering it's 4-2 both ways, the side of AGM isn't going to be too afraid. Though, if they come out of this round with a loss, it's going to be a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, they're going to be in a lot of trouble here if that ends up being the case. But we are going to start seeing a push from rear stage. Mute trying to hold that out. Going to get spotted out by the drone. Nook knows that he's close by, prepping for that shotgun swing. But with the SMG in hand, going to start the backup. Knows that Nook is going to be close. Tries to go for the swing regardless. Still gets caught by Nook here. Doing some major damage on Cade. Trying to get a refrag. Not going to be successful here. Going to instead start to fall further back onto site. With AGM still at the advantage for the helm right now, tries to get rid of that mirror, tries to get something out. Going to be unsuccessful here. Start to make her way down through Laundry Stairs, where right now there's not a whole lot of setup going through. They still have a massive funnel to punch through, but with one less person off the board, even if we're in an unfavorable exchange, they can still force their way out to the open. We're going to see a push-up very close to the barricade. Going to break that barricade, run out onto Twitch while she's droning. Jaeger. Very unfortunate for the Twitch there. Taking that initiative. That's going to be a huge Nile onto Twitch, as now it's up to Thatcher to take that portion of the site control. The Clash going to get spotted out. We haven't really seen much as far as pushing her out, but when it comes to getting beyond Freezer, that is going to be a serious problem here unless they have nades and sufficient utility clear out. So far, just pushing down through Freezer's stairs, not really acknowledging her in the way that I think they need to. However, we will see Thatcher waiting to cut her off, trying to push up from the closet, but I don't think Jaeger knows. Tries to go for the rotate, still able to get out, but Thatcher holding that rotate. Shots will come out, not going to catch anyone. Flash is now going out. Clash still up by Freezer, harassing Ash here. She's not going to be going anywhere. With her being the last one alive, still able to take one despite that. It's not looking the best. Still going to have to grab the fuser, where she meets her end. Tamira by the laundry room rotate.
Indeed. they managed to secure that kill right at the very end, and I mean, actually being able to secure themselves a defensive win on a map that's been so attacker-sided right now, they're going to be looking for the same on the side of AGM. But the thing is, when it comes down to it, AGM have won basement sites on the attack. Well, the big deal here is Element haven't. Both basement defenses that were played by AGM were won.
Yeah,
And
that was
I think
pretty
if
much.
we move into this and it happens again, you've got to be scared, considering they have to go to that site that they're going to be weaker on. You've just seen them lose on the upstairs. They have to probably go to one of these first floor sites. They're going to struggle with either one of them because it's going to be weaker than this basement. And
Yep.
you really can't predict where it's going to go, but you can definitely say it's not going to be promising for the side of Element.
No, absolutely not. Unless they go risky and go first floor, which I think is absolutely going to be their best move. AGM really doesn't have that option because we've clearly seen when they go first floor, it does not go well because they don't really have the ability to deny and execute from Element because there's so many avenues for Element to push out from, so many choices for them to take full advantage of. So if Element goes first floor, I think AGM is going to be really screwed on the swap. But as far as this site goes, yeah, absolutely. They have won basement pretty well. I think that was both of their defense rounds prior to the swap. But I still don't have a lot of faith, and that is because of the fact that their basement is still just not that good. And we have seen how quickly Element is able to set up and be able to get dropped. But once again, their weakest point really is getting execute down. That's when they start to fall apart so rapidly. And we already see a lot of the early setup. The lobby hatch already popped open here. But once it comes down to actually dropping down or getting set up, that's where I start to get worried. And how they handle that, I think, really determines who comes out on top. You're going to see that again. The shotgun swing, able to take one out. Already a very early loss. That's going to be Thatcher down. The walls they've got is the walls they got, or hatches. They're not going to be able to get a whole lot more with him gone and out of the way in favor of AGM here.
Indeed, as we do move further and further into this round, we're going to be seeing this Ash of Shimizu make their way down these freezer stairs. Obviously, you're at a man disadvantage. You need to find this win if you want to come out of this map early. And it's just not looking to be the case right now. The Wamai is going to be taking a hold of that grenade and keeping it for itself. The sledge comes dropping down the hatch, does manage to open up the mirror window. The mirror takes a swing past the head poles, and the mute's going to be covering her from the opposite side. Now we're going to be seeing a couple swings back and forth as they try and aggress onto the man that's going to be in freezer is Shimizu. The C4 doesn't quite ring true as now this Warden extremely aggressive, playing on this corner, ready to take the swing.
Amir will be able to cover for her, or cover for him, able to take out yet another. Still won over by Freezer, but with a shotgun and so many on hand, on deck, it's not going to be a very easy take as Ibana goes down as well. Gridlock going for the drop, trying to get someone off guard. Going to take a lot of damage from Bunker, where getting inevitably finished out for a flawless round in favor of AGM. A much different situation than the other basement clears, where it's a little bit closer. This one, not even a single pick. Now going on to the swap for overtime. I'm calling it now. If they don't go first round or first floor, Element loses this. That's my stakes. What about yours, Naj?
I think the only way they win this is going second floor. Because the first floor sides are argued to be weaker unless you're specifically sort of bringing this sort of gimmick strat or whatever else, whatever you want to call it. Like the first floors are statistically weaker than that top floor, and that is because of the upstairs presence that you can get on kitchen through just destroying all of the floor and bedroom. It's through the rotationary sort of cut-offs that you can make by getting that vertical pressure inside of the Z corridor, because the entire ceiling's destructible. It's so good for the attackers and so easy to play if you just play it by the book. And obviously, we're going to be seeing the Bucks switch off onto the ESA. More than likely, we'll see the Sledge probably switch off onto the Ram. The Thermite are switched off onto the Ace in order to be able to, handle that wall from range. But he's going to be switching back to Thermite for the better breach. Looks like we aren't going to be seeing a Ram this time around, and I think it's going to be entirely directed towards this tower side.
Yeah,
just going to open these tower walls, try and get the plant on stage with the ESA shields, and that's going to be like round, done, dusted. Very default strategy, but one that has worked a lot and can work very well.
Yeah, but honestly, I don't know. I feel like if they're able to predict and punish that sufficiently with a proper second floor presence, they're going to get a lot of damage in. But that's going to be the important part of playing first floor here, is denying that setup as much as possible, getting that damage in, shutting down that tower component. Because like you said, if they get that tower control, it's over. There's not going to be a lot left for them to fight back against. And as we see, very limited presence over by Attic. So you might be calling it here. This could be a very bad situation for Element. Not really reading the positioning and the push.
By the way.
Yeah.
Not even. Cade's got 3 mags left.
Yep. Going to be trying to go for a bit of a trick here. Trying to deny that Attic wall. So far being successful, but only because they're about to try to swing out on him in meeting hall, but still so far just absolutely nothing really to kind of really help Cade here. He's all on his own. All it takes is one swing from the other side and it's over for him. They're gonna throw that Thatcher, try to get that open. Another one going down, trying to keep that wall open. Cade will throw another one. Gonna be unsuccessful here. That wall will inevitably get open here. Gonna be rotating over by the castle double here. Just waiting out anyone who tries to push. Not opening up that castle barricade, though. I'm a little bit surprised by that. That could come to bite them as they try to push in. That's just going to be another angle they have to deal with. Nitro goes out. O's going to be down. Swing to finish her off. 3v5. Sledge taking a lot of damage. Going to be able to finish out the Cade, though, in retaliation. Barely alive, though, with only about 10 HP. They're very low and still out by rear stage. What's this? Jaeger with a massive flank here. They have no idea. Sledge going to go down as well. Now a 2v4. And now they have regained rear stage control. But we see a rotate over to the meeting lobby. Going to be able to take 2 picks here. It's now looking a lot better as they rotate out through main lobby, but we got another flank coming in. That's going to be Mute walking down the main stairs. Jaeger's taking the O's to his own advantage, but misses. Not going to be able to take a single person. Now down to a 2v1. Going to be holding out by Meeting Hall. Those shots going to reveal his positioning. Only one way to push out. Plan starting to go down. Barely exposed, but not going to be able to take the shots, or just not going to, as a plant now goes down to clock ticking. All up to Jaeger here for Element to win this. Otherwise, AGM is going to have a sweeping comeback here. 35 seconds left. Jaeger going to have to make a move eventually. Going to opt to push in by the rotate here. With far back as playing, the walls being open, it's not looking too good here. Jaeger going to get spotted out from the garage side. A few shots coming out towards him. But so far, still playing passively, waiting for one of them to overpeak. But the pre-fire from Ace to shut down Jaeger for a sweeping comeback from AGM. Element just not able to get the impact they wanted.
Bro, AGM, I'm very happy with them proving me wrong here today. I think the fact that they were able to really pull that in, like rein that in for themselves, actually give themselves a win, and dropping, 40 kills on 3 players is insane.
Yeah, can't believe that. I mean, that rotate from main to main lobby was so imperative. They lost so much control from rear stage. But that's the thing that AGM learned about Element, is that was what they like to do. They like to sneak up, retake, and lock in. But thanks to having Diffuser, thanks to having some presence by main lobby, never really giving that up. Even when they lost rear stage, they immediately wrapped around, and AGM or Element was not ready for that at all. But so yeah, that last second adjustment was just what AGM needed to barely come back there. I mean, a very close overtime, 8-7. But with that match out of the way, up next, we have another match here with you. That's going to be Esports 7 versus, give me just a second here,
Pulse
versus
Nation.
Pulse Nation. Thank you. I had it a second ago and I drew a blank. But with that, we'll see you in a sec. We're going to be right back.
Hello and welcome back to Season 7 of the ESA Cup. We're going to be covering Group A for you, and as we can already see, Before Effect versus Minions, already a default win. Before Effect, I'm pretty sure have folded or been disqualified. Rounds have been forfeited. And yeah, so there's only 2 maps in this right now. So, first one we just covered. And now we're going to be moving on to the second of the day with my good friend Piercing.
Yep, we're going to be moving on to our final match of the night. That's going to be Sevens Esport versus Pulse Nation. Now, I want to remind you, this is a very high stakes situation for Sevens Esport. Pretty much every team now is locked in except for Pulse Nation and Sevens Esport. However, the conditions are going to be very tough, as if Sevens Esports does not clear this out before they get to overtime, it does not matter whether or not they win or lose that overtime. They are out. Pulse Nation, their situation is very simple. All they have to do is hold out and last until overtime. If they win all their defense and then just whiff every single attack, doesn't matter. They're still locked in. But if they really fumble the bag here, then it will be Pulse Nation that gets eliminated, as AGM has overtaken Pulse Nation's position after winning their match in a very close overtime against Element. So right now, the top 3, they're in, they're done. AGM Pulse Nation might switch in positions, but ultimately, that's not the real question we're asking. The real question is Sevens Esports going to have a chance in stage 2, or is this where their story ends for season 7 of the ESA Cup?
Well, I mean, looking at the social votes, 86% in favor of Pulse. And I mean, that is a pretty one-sided affair right there.
Yeah,
um,
it very heavily in favor of Pulse Nation here. That is quite a stark contrast to what we have last game, which was a lot closer. So yeah, it's really looking like Sevens Esports is really gonna have to kick it into overdrive if they want to move on here. I'm a bit worried for them here. But before we kind of look into why the social vote might be so skewed, other than the apparent fact that they're at the bottom of the standing, let's go over the team cards real quick here, just for one final review, for one of these teams. Don't know which one until we play, but for one of these teams, this will be the last time we review their card for this season. 17 Sport, Xerox Odessa, Ryuji, Snows, Kizura, Scrim, Renaxim, and Sin, with their best map on Clubhouse and the worst on Oregon.
pretty reasonable. On the side of Pulse, we are going to be seeing Schnitzy, Lamau, Lamankai. We're also seeing Lightsy, Beans, and Durners. And obviously, as I said before, this is just their sum of their roster. So realistically, we're not going to be seeing all of these players, considering you can only have 5. The ones we are going to be seeing are Schnitzy, alongside Lamankai, Beans, Lightsy, and Durners. So there are 5 for today, and I mean their best map, Oregon, which is the opposite team's worst, and Clubhouse as their worst, which is the opposite team's best. So more than likely, we're going to be seeing both of these maps taken off the card. Speaking of which, let's get that on the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, naturally, that is what happened. Both of those maps getting, yeah, both of those maps being taken off, with Chalet being the map that we play for tonight. Neither team's best, but also neither team's worst. So at least in that regard, performance-wise, it is a bit doable, or at least they have not as much experience with either of those maps. But I really think the problem here is going to be where Sevens Esports has been throughout this season, really on a struggle. And with Pulse Nation coming up and still standing a pretty good chance against some of the higher teams, I don't really foresee Sevens Esports
Yeah.
pulling this off. Or if they do, it's going to be at overtime. And at that point, does it really matter? And my answer to that is no. So we'll just have to see what happens there with that. And everyone clearly agrees that majority in favor of Pulse Nation winning this out, but that's not really what or the vote might be for who wins the match overall, but the real winner is, can Pulse Nation hold out to overtime? And I would think they could. I mean, it doesn't seem like that big of an ask, but I could be wrong. That could just not happen at all.
Well, I mean, going into a map like Chalet, it's one of those where, again, it's particularly like in favor of the defenders, but that's more so because these first four sites have just slowly gotten stronger and stronger. The same way as it has on club and things like that, as the top floor has gotten weaker. It's just gotten stronger and stronger on the first floors because people have been adapting to that and like constructing those strategies around the kitchen and bar defenses. One thing that we do have to take into account is neither of these teams have played Chalet in ESA so far. So it's a bit of a wild card for both, and I think it all comes down to the general sort of adaptability, the way they sort of orient themselves around being able to deal with the opponent's defenses, is going to be the big difference maker in this matchup. So I think overall it could very much go either way, but I mean, as long as Pulse get to overtime, even if it's an overtime loss and they end up on equal points, the round difference is still going to be in Pulse's favor. We are going to be heading into the game shortly. There is once again a little bit of a delay. We are going to be missing out on two of the bans, but I'll quickly run through all of the bans as best I can, as thoroughly as I can, and as quickly as I can in order to keep you guys informed and also describe the prowess and power behind taking these operators off the board. So moving in to Chalet as a whole, more than likely on the attacking side, you're probably going to see things that kind of help with the breach, as the breach is a very big factor on that top and bottom floor. So as we move into the actual ban phase itself, looks like we're going to be having a look at this little map video. Look how beautiful Chalet looks in this. It's incredible. And then the zoom out. And there
like
it is.
You said, breach. That's ace off the board.
Intel denial and a breacher taken off the board. We're going to be seeing Fenrir for that sort of entry denial alongside that. That's a very good ban. More than likely, final ban going to be Solace, but also could be things ranging from a Zami to something a bit more wild, like an Echo or a Valkyrie. Two operators that are very strong on this map as a whole, but we are going to be seeing Solace taken off the board, as I mean, she does have a very high ban rate, and as I said in the last map, she's relatively busted. So when we move into a map where she's unbanned, she does kind of take control and has a very well dictated pick rate. But with her being off the cards, we're going to be seeing things like Ram. We're going to be seeing things like the Azami, as you can see on both sides right now, because of what's available. The Thatcher is available, but Kali is much better at controlling these long angles, especially when it comes down to fighting against a basement hold, and then also being able to contest against Library. So we'll be seeing how the side of Pulse do decide to try and deconstruct the hold coming out of this bar gaming site. But as I said, these first four sites becoming more primary for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, I do find it really fascinating, the fact that we even see a Cali. I can't remember the last time I remember seeing the Cali, and it gets switched off. Spoke too soon. But regardless, I do think that Ace Band, especially starting out on attack, is a very surprising pick, but I feel like I know why they did it. And it is because of the fact that they are comfortable enough in their attack and they feel like they're not going to see basement enough that keeping ace is worthwhile, because that's really what ace is all about, is making that second floor breach almost impossible without serious risks such as having a thermite walk up to the wall where someone can nitro from below if there's no accountability, like you have no library control. And it can be especially dangerous to deal with basement when you just have one less hard breacher that can open that up with from a range at a or a very fast pace. So if Pulse Nation feels confident enough to do this and make that ban, and that does actually work out, then I'm very scared for you end up attacking, because that is a very staple operator, and to ban that for a Pulse Nation is very, very cocky of them, but could pay out in dividends if that ends up being the case. Wow. The wallbang headshot. Perfect information on Zomedy for a very early pick here. And that's going to be a little bit of that's going to be a huge loss, as they now have to lock up Mezzanine and Library before they convene, with Frost getting taken down as well, getting very violently picked off one by one by Pulse Nation. No thanks to Sledge there. Now it's all up to one person left trying to hold above, possibly moved over. Now 2 people above, and we're going to see yet another taken down. They may not even need the vert. It's a flawless round. My gosh, 7 Pulse Nation just obliterating Sevens esports from all fronts. Vertical, horizontal, it doesn't matter. They just flushed them out before they could get a pick. What just happened, Nosh?
Unable to deal with the contention coming forward, that a lot of utility expended as they tried to go for those aggressive plays in order to give themselves a bit of an advantage in the earlier portion of the game, and it just didn't work for them. They ended up getting caught out. They ended up losing players. Obviously, this team is still at a core level relatively known for being across many tournaments okay, but they also have a couple newcomers specifically to this season as a whole, as we see Ryuji and Xerox picking themselves up off of the team's Tracker Clan and YOD respectively, as you can still see the tags in their name. But the side of Pulse Nations, the entire roster is the core at this point. You've got so many players that have all been playing together for so long, and they're just not really willing to let it go. They have this sort of resenting and resounding sort of competitiveness to them in order to really try and, well, cement themselves in this fixture. So looking at that first round and how dominant it was for them, I think that could persist throughout the rest of this game.
Yeah, and the biggest problem too is when you're on attack, momentum is everything, and when you're getting swept in such a violent fashion, and here's the thing, this wasn't an outlier round, right? Pulse Nation didn't do anything weird. They didn't do anything special. That was a pretty standard round that just went very, very well for Pulse Nation, and they just kept everything lock and key. But we're not going to see that this time with the run out thanks to Goyo, but not without a pick onto Jaeger, making that just a little bit better for them to get that control. Almost a big whiff from Legion, able to take yet another, as Pulse Nation right now is falling apart on their execute. A bit of pre-fire onto the stairs, onto Twitch, but she's now going to walk up, gets caught on the Legion goo mine, doesn't know that Legion's there, but is able to pistol whip in after catching him last second. Now 3v3, they do have that top, or are starting to get that top control from the Solarium side, but not without major casualties, losing their Sledge and losing their Ash now off the board, but still have a Bonner. They still have a hard breacher. They still have flashes, smokes. So it's not all bad, but they've still got some ways to go if they want to get that library side control. They're not going to really be able to get as much force out of the vertical as they would like. So still a bit of trouble ahead for them.
I mean, you've still got your flank and your flank watch. You've still got your flex, your flank watch on side, alongside those two sort of execute operators. And that is a very big deal, especially considering this flank watch in particular brings along nades. You are going to be throwing them in. They do get caught by a 1 gadget. And yeah, you've got those ADSs there in the trophy corridor, but it's like realistically, you've still got the ability to be able to destroy these Goyo canisters, which that one my gadget did once the actual nade went through. And now we're just going to be seeing engagements go back and forth. Lightsey finds one. Dern is soon to fall right after, and it's going to be Lightsey versus the world now. He needs to find the final two if he's going to actually be able to secure this round for his team, or it goes to 1-1. Trying to take some peeks onto the little ace holes that they do have inside of there, or on, well, Havana holes, I guess, but ace shape.
Ooh!
Lightsey tries to go for the engagement, takes a quick swing,
so
unable
close.
to find the Azami, but manages to get the 90-degree flick onto the Goyo after just a scuffle or a little bit of a skirmish against this Azami, and ends up falling for himself. Going to be 1-1 now, either way, and I think that's not really going to knock onto Pulse's confidence. Realistically, I think they're going to carry on playing the same way. They're bringing along this very sort of standard sort of operator lineup. The only thing that's really out of place, or has been really out of place so far, is this gridlock in favor of a Nomad. But then again, we all know why gridlock's being picked. It's because she's got nades.
No, absolutely, and that is a huge difference maker, at least for the time being. They are saying that they're gonna rework the nades where you can't cook them and all this other stupid crap. You know, UB being the L that it always has been and always will be. But for the time being, still a very major pick, and of course that we're gonna see that reflected in grid or gridlock being picked more often over Nomad. Unfortunately, those nades not being able to get an impact she was able still, like you said, to get a very nice pick, but she kind of overcooked there, burnt the food, not able to finish off the last one, kind of pre-fired a bit too much, kind of threw her aim off a little bit, but still very winnable for Pulse Nation, and that is the important thing to keep in mind here. That was a very winnable round still for Pulse Nation. It was very close with how they turned that around. And with Sevens Esports, with how close it was for them to win that out, especially on a first floor site, which I would argue is still some of the best sites on Chalet, it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to be able to pick up ahead once they move on to the second floor basement, because they're going to have to eventually go that way, especially if they win out this next first floor site, which remains to be seen at the moment. I feel that it's going to be close, or Pulse Nation takes that one as well.
Yeah, by the looks of things, they are going to be trying to get this entry through games, but a bit of contention coming out of Scrim as he fires a few shots back through that window as the players try to enter, but is going to be falling himself off into blue. It is a kitchen site hold, so he can make his way back up those west main stairs. And at the moment, we are just going to be seeing him play around main, try and see if he can secure some sort of pick for himself. Manages to find the flank drone, but the track stinger is going to be placed down in preparation for that rotation. And now we're going to be seeing Dernis take on to this top floor. There is going to be a castle barricade in his way, but he is around. He is able to clear it with that buggy drone, and also, if we want, make himself a rotate going in towards that soft wall where the head holes are currently positioned. Now, the breach going to be opened onto that kitchen wall, and more than likely, this OSA are going to be trying to make a way through towards getting that plant down. Obviously, there is a lot of vertical pressure right now, but no one really able to pressure behind this half wall as there is pressure from the corridor. And I think that's going to make it very, very difficult for the defenders, especially missing this impact grenade. It means you only have one really left in pocket, and that means you can't deal with the other Talon shield without using or expending your C4 for it.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate, losing an impact, and with the shield coming right back, they're now back to square one in that regard, and with all utility being expended except for a Nitro from Valkyrie, it's going to make things a little bit difficult in denying this execute. And right now, with two people playing very far back, and that's going to be both Castle and Legion,
C4.
It's going to make things really tough if they go for a more of a horizontal push and just stave off the vertical, which I think is an approach that Pulse Nation is trying to possibly go for here. We've got both the vertical and horizontal component, but not before getting shot out for multiple picks from the vertical, with Sevens Esports steamrolling Pulse Nation's vertical here. Now up to Thermite, but what is he going to do? I mean, the clamp down from Sevens Esports, destroying the vertical there, absolutely shutting them down. The calm before the storm once again, but this time for Sevens Esports.
Incredibly played by the side of Sevens, managing to secure themselves another round. Obviously going towards that kitchen dining sort of site over there, just to try and favor themselves a little bit. But realistically, you're going back to this top floor. You have to be able to win it. They're probably not going to go down to the basement because there's so many different strategies that you have to prepare for in order to be able to defend that site effectively. And now, I mean, we're just going to be seeing exactly the same sort of approach from the side of Pulse Nation, and it's not exactly a detriment to them. It's not something that is entirely negative for them to be bringing this operator lineup, and I think it can genuinely work. It's just a matter of making these tiny little micro adjustments throughout the different sites and throughout the site rotation in order to be able to secure a win for yourself. It all becomes a matter of just playing well in the round.
Ultimately, yes, and I would say Pulse Nation did not play that particular round very well. Just getting snuffed out, not watching where they should be. It very much fell apart there. But right now, it's looking a little bit worrying for Pulse Nation because now that same momentum that they threw away from the very get-go is now being translated back over to Sevens Esports with the violent nature that they are able to shut down these pushes. All those Capcans are going to get spotted out. Very unfortunate for Capcan to lose so much utility in such a short amount of time, but with the Nitro still on board, still able to have his impact. And that's the thing. Pulse Nation hasn't really played aggressive enough to justify that kind of utility. They're just going to spot out the bar, though. They do know that there's a player over by bar that's going to be the one Mai. Still has a fallback thanks to the Valkyrie here, who's looking to try to get a massive flank onto Sledge here, slowly creeping in. Don't think Sledge is ready. Oh, but he is able to catch him out. And knowing that that's not the target that he's looking for, he's going to continue to further his hunt for Wamai, but he's already back all the way up in blue stairs. And with that fall back not being well coordinated, that's going to be a pick for Pulse Nation. With another one, as Gridlock on the window, going to be able to isolate out Jaeger there. Vertical component not looking too good with the horizontal pretty much falling apart now that Valkyrie's off the board. Jaeger looking hurt as well. However, Capcan will be able to barely snuff out Sledge for a refrag there. Very low HP there, but still successful nevertheless. Wall now popped open. Going to force Mute to fall back over to Office here. Not looking too good for the defense here, but with one set of nades down, it is still doable, but they're going to have some work to do and possibly take some initiative here, which they do. Going to be able to catch out Ash here. Fortunately for her, looking a little bit better here, but with the amount of time the attackers still have, it's going to be tough to still come back from this. They're going to have to hold their ground still for yet a bit more time.
Indeed they are. They're going to be just falling off towards this bathroom and bedroom door crossfire. And, I mean, this player on piano window could be a bit of a scary entity, especially considering their only real option to deal with him is to go for this jump up. But it's a matter of which window they do decide to choose to jump from. They get him down to very low HP, jumping out of that bathroom window, but unable to secure the kill for themselves. And now, we're going to be seeing engagements either way. 3v3, taking peeks. Snows finds one onto the man that's on the window, the 1 HP fella in that engagement. A little swing coming round onto the piano from the Lion, but the already low health Mute manages to secure that for himself in its stead. And now we're going to be seeing the Thermite once again in a clutch situation, but unable to get himself on the board.
Yeah, right now, Pulse Nation is really struggling on their attack, which I really wouldn't have expected from how they played that first round. But this power of those holds that they had at the very beginning, it's just not there. Their holds are so weak right now. I mean, every time they get some ground, immediately after, Sevens Esport is right there with several more people to shut that down, even when there's a person disadvantaged. Sevens Esport just keeps hammering down at every grounds that Pulse Nation has, keeps recontesting them. And even if they don't win out the first time or the second time, eventually they do win it out. And when they do, they win big, taking over half the team out in the process. And naturally, they're going to call a timeout because of that, since this is a serious problem for them. One of the important things on attack is when you take gunfights, you do it to take control. There is no real situation that is justifiable in which, as an attacker, you already have control of an area, you then lose that control, and you come out with a serious disadvantage. That cannot happen. And unfortunately, that's exactly the situation for Pulse Nation. They are taking massive losses. They are losing control of areas they already had. and they're not keeping a foothold. Maybe they need to invest in a grid and a nomad, because the amount of control that they are sacrificing right now is costing them rounds. And that timeout's going to do nothing if they can't fix that issue, which right now, based off the composition, they're not really doing that.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a matter of them gaining the control for themselves and then slowly losing it as they meet a wall of the defense. And I mean, now we're able to go back to this bar defense, this bar site. We are going to be seeing a bit of a jigged up operator lineup for the side of Pulse, as they are down 3-1. Realistically, you don't want it going any further, but naturally, as much as it hasn't been in this tournament so far, Chalet is a relatively defender-sided map because, well, it's still one of those still relatively new into the map pool in comparison to some others with the rework. So it's like, when it comes down to how Chalet is played as a whole, it isn't entirely set in stone. So when these teams are able to put their foot in the door and show off a strategy that either they've made up themselves or they've, well, incorporated sort of a gimmick to it, there's no real sort of like direct way to counter it that's been established yet for this map in particular. So it's one of those where you kind of have to either struggle or crack on, and we are just seeing them decide to crack on as of right now.
Yeah, so far I'm still holding their fortifications, but I don't know how long that's gonna last. And one thing, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, Sledge walked right into Jaeger and he just casually leans into him. Oh my gosh. But not before getting slammed in a refrag thanks to Ash. Oh my gosh, what a disastrous exchange of events there, but for both of them, really. I mean, he had no idea he was about to walk straight into Jaeger. Neither really knew. I mean, you saw the casual turnaround, like, huh, what's that? Oh, it's Sledge. Will you look at that? But with that being said, they are going to be able to get that office side control, Pulse Nation, but not without losing another. Right now, we've got a heavy lurk presence from Sevens Esport here. Valkyrie still sitting below. It's that ticking time bomb once again. Once they snatch onto Pulse, or kind of clasp onto them from the piano side, that's where it falls apart. Ooh, not without Wamai first taking some heavy damage and still able to get away. There's no way. He's able to just walk away with his life still in hand, but that eventually ends as he gets snuffed out eventually, trying to create that opening for Sevens Esports, which right now hasn't really happened here, as it's now 2v4 with Sevens Esports still folding at the moment, with Ash coming in from the backside from Kitchen side. They're pretty much coming in from all directions here. It's going to take some work to come back. Some flashes coming out. Ash not looking for a zombie, but with Ash closely behind, going to be able to quickly refrag for Pulse Nation to pick up their second round. Looks like that timeout paid off, though statistically, when you call a timeout, you are very likely to win that round, whoever calls it. And before I say continue or move on, I do want to say one thing that's kind of interesting about what we're seeing right now is that Sevens Esports is on the majority win of rounds with defense, but that's not typical. Usually, of the rounds that have been played on Chalet, 59% of them are won on attack. So right now, Sevens Esports is really going against the grain right now, with the other 41% going to attack. So they really shouldn't be winning this, especially with how some of these rounds have went against them. But like I said, that ticking time bomb effect is just so violent that Pulse Nation just doesn't know what to do unless they can snuff them out slowly, which is what we saw last round. They keep doing that, they'll get more attack rounds, but they've only got one round to go. So sucks to suck, I guess.
I mean, yeah, very true. We're going to be going back to this kitchen site, and with how it was played by them last time, it's going to be a little difficult for the side of Pulse Nation to actually be able to secure themselves anything coming into this, but more than likely we'll have to see where they take it from here. And I think bringing along this Nomad in favor of the gridlock has been very good for them, considering they've had no real use out of the nades so far. So realistically, they're relatively just a worthless entity, and you're more than likely better bringing along those flashbangs in order to try and take close range engagements. Mankai finds one with the R4C on that ram, and is going to be moving his way over towards this game side. It's a Legion that falls. One very active utility member, and the only active utility member other than Warden, who literally carries his gadget around. That is on the defensive side right now. So one of your ideal picks coming into this round.
Yeah, losing that Legion out so early on is definitely not going to help anything, especially when it comes to snuffing out the players of Pulse Nation that are kind of hunting down these lurkers. That's going to be less of a heads up for operators like Valkyrie to kind of pick up that something's up, and just more opportunity to get flushed out here. Very close shots, almost a headshot from both ends. Wall now getting open, but Jaeger opting to play aggressively here by the double window, waiting for somebody to come out and play and try to take a pick off this off pocket positioning, but gonna get snuffed out instead by Ram with a double kill there. Gonna be able to take yet another player. Right now, not looking good for Sevens Esports so far on the vertical front. Currently falling apart here. However, Warden still trying to contest those grounds. Gonna give away his positioning with those pre-fires. Not looking very good to hold this out. As with no one else to help, we're gonna see potentially yet another loss, which is what's gonna happen thanks to Ram on the half wall. And now it's up to Valkyrie and Castle, with one of them still by basement. It's going to be an all-out brawl for these two, but I don't think it's going to be one that they will be likely winning. Heavy damage coming out onto Castle, but still able to connect to one on the wall bank through the feed holes. Gets a little bit of damage onto Osa, but with the vertical out for a quad kill, we could see potentially an ace here. It proves too much. The Nitro going out, not going to connect to anyone. Plant now going down, and they know exactly where Valkyrie is. Give Ram the ace here. Still on that vertical, but it'll be Thermite to steal the ace away from Ram, as Pulse Nation almost flawlessly wins out that round. And with that, we go to the swap.
Well, as the side switch comes in, we are going to be seeing a 3-3 scoreline on the board. And obviously, it's not ideal. Something I am going to correct myself on, as I was meant to say it beforehand, but I said it wrong. The map of Chalet is naturally attacker-sided, but there's a lot of defender upsets when it comes down to well-playing defensive teams, or even just averagely good defensive teams coming up against weaker attacking lineups. And as we saw in that previous sort of engagement that we had, those sorts of microaggressions with the nades on the gridlock not really working out for them and not really being such a staple. And it's just one of those where you kind of just lose it out. You're not able to really do anything because those nades are relatively worthless. And yeah, like bringing along the Nomad was such a good decision.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very good pick there, and it helped them a lot to secure that round. But now we're on the defense, and if anything is to be said about the trends, Sevens Esports should be looking good to pick it up, but playing a game of catch-up is still a game of losing for them. So we're going to see if they're able to stand out this upcoming round, but considering that attacker defender bias, they should have a pretty good shot at doing that. So I don't think they should have a pretty good chance here. But I do have one quick announcement before we move on to this next round. Unfortunately, I do have to get going. I'm out of time. I've got a counseling appointment. The first game took too long, so I do apologize for that. So I'll be heading off. So good luck to the teams, and thanks for having me.
No worries. I hope your appointment goes well.
Thank you, thank you.
But Beans is the first man to fall to the man that's standing outside the window, and now we're going to be seeing a bit more of a ready, a bit more of a confident Sevens Esports coming in for the remainder of this round. Thatcher going to be just placing down those claymores on the top of the fireplace stairs, and Snow's going to be making his way through this blue corridor. We are going to be seeing the castle barricade get punched out on the top of fireplace on that mezzanine sort of area, and the Legion placing his goo mines, trying to take out these drones just to keep themselves safe as of right now. And I mean, Mankai, the man of the hour right now on the side of Force Nation, is just going to be prepping himself a barricade. He is going to be lagging a little bit by the looks of things, but Xerox on this balcony could be a bit of a threat to him, actually, considering this Frost position could get easily thwarted by just his position in general, but he does decide to fall off. Breach is now open, and Maxime has already made his way all the way through. He's going to be positioned on this half wall, trying to get the diffuser down, but the impact below from the Legion is able to just push him out of that position enough for them to get a pick. And now with the Ash coming in, trying to get aggressive, she finds one for herself. Snow's going to be on a double now by the looks of things, as we're going to be seeing more engagements from these defenders just to try and equalize this man count. Mankai falls, and now it's going to be so much more detrimental for this Jaeger to be able to find a pick. Lightsey 3 and 4 in the game so far, and it's going to remain that way, going 3 and 5 as Snows finds the final pick. As we move into round number 8, we are going to be seeing a bit more of a diverse lineup on both sides, and I think when it comes down to it, we are going to be just questioning whether the side of Pulse Nation are actually going to be able to pull themselves back together here. As I said, there's a lot of defensive upsets that we have seen, both in Pro League and outside of it, and I think this is something that could definitely really play a part in this game, and Pulse really need to find it. Because at the moment, we're just seeing them struggle. They're not really doing very well. Obviously, they're having their individual performances. Lamankai, 11 and 4. But everyone else just kind of suffering. Everybody's negative, except for Beans, who's 6 and 5. Whereas on the opposite side, you've got Snows, positive. You got Maxime, positive. You've got Scrims nearly, same with Xerox, but everyone's having a relatively, okay game. It's just that one player on the side of Pulse Nation that's really bringing everything together right now, and that's something you've really got to be afraid of, especially coming into the rest of this matchup. On the defensive side, they have gotten themselves reinforcements upstairs and have a bit of a foothold on what they want to be trying to do. We do see this rotate being opened up in the closet. That's literally just going to be so they can try and avoid that big window as best they can. And also more than likely going to be some vertical angles in there. Also, the barricade being opened slightly on that window is going to be a little worrying for them, as potentially that could indicate a player just hanging around above, maybe seeing if he can find anything for himself from there. The hatch is going to be opened underneath that door, and Fink are going to be deciding to just run straight in. Almost gets caught out by the pressure from above. The vertical angles aren't going to work out for the defenders as of this very point in time, and now this mirror window is going to be a very big part of this defense if it's able to remain. And looks like it is going to be, as of this very moment, they're going to be able to open up the one inside of this corridor if the Finker does decide to get confident enough to take the swing. And I mean, she should, really. There isn't many places she can be peeked from on that angle. But it looks like they're just going to be trying to get this mezzanine breach open in order to get themselves through onto half wall and try and take this upstairs pressure with a thundering presence. But the mirror window getting open from below is going to mean they can't play behind it as formidably as they would beforehand. And I mean, this castle just kind of hanging around behind the dining room table is going to be a little unsure of what he wants to try and do, as he knows this player's below. He knows that they've got a little bit of sort of engagement coming his way, as they are going to be trying to get this breach on the lower wall open alongside this top one. The Talon Shield's already placed down, ready to sort of give the attackers a little bit of a view onto the site, but we do see a couple impacts. Oh no, we don't actually. I thought the Wamai was going to be bringing impacts, but it's not. It's bringing beepers. So we don't actually have any impacts on the defensive side. Instead, we've got two C4s. They could have brought impacts on the Valkyrie, but opted against it. Lightsey finds one, though, bringing himself further into this game, managing to get himself a 4th kill in this matchup. Not going to be on the back foot for too much longer. If he keeps up like this, the Mirror are going to be taking a couple of engagements onto the breach, but may actually uncover herself to the Thinker that's going to be on the door if she's not too careful. Indeed, does manage to avoid it as she does secure a kill for herself. Now, Thinker going to be trying to get aggressive onto the Mirror, who's prone on the floor behind the counter, but Schnitzy actually manages to find that kill for himself. A long-range kill for Ryuji as a nade comes out of Xerox, and Ryuji finds another. Now it's going to be a 2v2 in what seemed like a devastating situation for the side of Sevens. And indeed, it remains that way as the two players get their way onto the planter and secure themselves another round on the side of Pulse Nation, equalizing the scoreline at 4-4. We do see this matchup as a whole doing very, very well for both sides. As, I mean, with how even it has been so far, we could see another overtime game here. And as we said very early in the game, if this goes to overtime, no matter what, whether it's win, lose, I mean, you can't draw, so I don't know where I'm going with this, but whether it's win or lose, Pulse are qualified. If Pulse get 1 point, they qualify based on round difference alone, because it will equalize the points, but Pulse will still have a better round difference. But if we do end up in a position where this match ends in regulation to the side of Seven, they are able to steal away this qualified spot for the side of Pulse. And Pulse are going to be fighting tooth and nail to maintain their position in this cup. And if they're able to get themselves into the Swiss stage, they are going to be at much more of a, well, favourable position, especially considering they can look into the teams they're going to be coming up against. They can sort of try and predict their way through the Swiss stage and see where they're going to end up, based generally on how the teams have performed against each other in the past. But with it being a mixture of groups, you kind of have to be unsure. Chalet has been played 7 times in this cup so far. A little bit of random trivia for you from our board member of Rednax himself. And I mean, well, in 90 total operator bans. Wait, 45, but yeah, 90 total operator bans. We've seen Solace banned 73% of the time. Fenrir banned 40% of the time. Ace was only actually banned 2% of the time, alongside Knock with that 29%. And I think when it comes down to Ace, the reason Ace isn't banned as often is like simply just because, well, you bring the Ace mainly for the AK and the Claymores. When it comes down to other hard breaches, Hibana's more versatile. Thermite has a much better breach. Lamankai is finding kills left, right, and center as this man brings himself up to 12 and 4. Lightsy finds another, finally waking up in this game, being able to find himself a couple kills. And if he's able to find a second in the round, that might be the confidence he needs to be able to get himself further and further into this match. But Scrims tries to equalize a little bit by securing a kill with a nade, and that's going to be another kill for Lightsy as Scrims does try and take the engagement in the corridor. Finding the second kill in the round is going to be very, very good for Lightsy, as he is going to be able to equalize his kill count, his KD ratio, get himself back up to a 1 KD, and now he's going to be much more confident to take these swings. Dernis finds one with a headshot on the downstairs and decides to go for the C4 for the second, and manages to get a perfect read on where that sledge is going to be going. Now then, 4-5 in favor of Pulse Nation. Pulse Nation could genuinely come out of this with a win, and I mean, they only need one more round to qualify themselves for the Swiss stage. I think the side of Sevens are aware of this, and they are just keeping that in mind, as they know they need to win the next 3 in a row in order to be able to secure themselves back into this game and this matchup as a whole. If they win even 2 more, it could be very, very promising as long as they win these 2 in a row. But if they're unable to do so, this could be a very big detriment for them, and it could be a very, very scary time, as they are starting to fall behind. The pause coming out, and more than likely what I'd be saying to the side of sevens right now is stop taking ones. You're kind of overextending, putting yourselves in too many awful positions, and generally just trying to force the issue rather than trying to utilize this utility that you have on side. And even if it comes down to just throwing out these flashbangs, throwing out these sort of not looking specifically for nade kills, but utilizing attacker utility. Things like bringing along maybe the Flores instead of the Ash in order to try and secure something there, or I don't know. It's one of those situations where you are kind of just unsure. And I think we're not seeing enough out of the attacking side in order to be able to confidently say that they're doing it well. Once again, a very standard lineup. The only real outlier here is that gridlock. But, I mean, realistically, it's as I said before, looking at this gridlock as a whole, she's kind of just not doing enough. Like, the nade denial is too good on the defensive side, even if it is just this one mod that they're bringing along this time. And, I mean, sure, they could use the Thatcher on the outside of the piano balcony to try and give themselves a bit of an advantage going into it, but when you lose your hard breach straight away, that's when you really start to question things. Legion falls, 2 Xerox on that piano window, or on that, on that blue corridor window, as he is just going to be crouching at the top of those stairs. And now we're going to be seeing a bit more of a potential bloodbath coming out of the side of sevens, as they are going to be wanting to try and take these engagements. Gridlock going to be making her way through this kitchen corridor to see if she can actually get a frag, as she has got that AR in hand. Takes a bit of damage, but secures one in return is Ryuji, as Xerox is on the opposite side. Going to be taking the engagement against this man inside of kitchen, finds that one for himself, and now it's a 4 versus 2, where you lost your hard breach straight away. You're now in an advantageous position on man count. You have these 2 players, both remaining on site, one of them standing around a piano, the other one over towards Solarium. And realistically, you can confidently take a swing onto each of these players and confirm the fact that you have a 1v1. They do have this gridlock on the big window. C4 rings out, but isn't able to sing true, as he's going to be watching over towards this K9 door. Players seem to be everywhere for the side of Pulse, as now they're going to be making their way through, or not the side of Pulse, for the side of sevens, as they're going to be trying to make their way through and securing countless frags and just running away with the round, even after losing that hard breach first. Pulse were unable to secure themselves a round based on those gunfights alone. And we look at a 5-5 scoreline.
Defenders, protect your bombs from being defused by attackers.
Right, look, sevens, let's be real here, right? Like, you were able to find kills in the previous round, and that's what went well for. That's what went well for you. But you're bringing along more nades. They didn't work before. Why are we bringing more? Surely just bring flash utility or smokes. Something less aggressive, because quite clearly you're unable to deal with these magnets that are on side for the opposing team. And it's like, you've got 6 nades, 3 flashbangs, and 2 EMPs. The EMPs are going to be utilized straight away. The nades can't be used vertically because the vertical that they're going to be holding is right above the site. And you have to get on site in order to be able to play those vertical nades. Now, if I'm a defender, I'm not going to allow that to happen. Now, if you take these nades upstairs and clear out the utility upstairs, sure, you're going to be able to get yourself some ground, but it looks like Finker's going to be pressuring on these downstairs windows, which is not ideal, because these nades are now borderline pointless. You are going to be able to get that vertical pressure from the basement in order to open the mirror windows, but realistically, what is it worth at this point? As yes, you're able to get the vertical pressure open, you're able to open up these mirror windows, but what have you really accomplished other than just opening headholds? They're still able to peek those mirror windows. They're still able to play them. And realistically, it doesn't cut off any rotates, especially considering you haven't at all got the breach open yet. You are going to be opening them now. You're going to be taking onto that sort of half-wall area first, and then dropping down and opening up the breach below. Now, the problem with opening the breach below is there is a lot of pressure coming out of these defenders on that area. And, I mean, with them now just opening up the half-wall, they are going to actually be able to apply themselves more to the upstairs. The ESA shield going to be getting ready to be placed in front of that kitchen wall, as now they're going to be just blowing it straight open. The EMP grenade goes out, wall gets opened, and the castle going to have to fall off of where he was positioned. Looks like he's going to be making his way back into kitchen corner, just to play on those countertops and see if he can find a kill onto any player that over-aggresses through the door, but as no one decides to yet, he's just kind of a little worthless. They need to be able to clear out these players that are going to be taking engagements on the breach, but Echo of Dernis does have to fall off now, as the nade from the Finker is going to be singing out onto that Solari upstairs. Doesn't quite make it through to reach its mark, and I think it was directly aimed at this Frost, but Frost just falling off of that position is able to remain alive. C4 doesn't quite find its mark, as now the diffuser is actually going to go down. Though the player falls, Pulse Nation have managed to get themselves a player advantage, considering, but this Finker is in such an awful position. She's not able to cover the diffuser. She's being pressured by people everywhere. The ESA does manage to find one up above onto the Wamai, but Gridlock gets swung on. She does win out a 1v1, and Pulse are just unable to get out of any of these engagements unscathed. Realistically, at the moment, Sevens were entirely playing on their gunplay, and it's working for them. They're doing very generic, basic strategy that is just something you'd expect. There's no real gimmicks involved in their defenses, or in their offenses, sorry. And they're just taking the side of Pulse by storm, just by taking these gunfights, winning them out, and not really being contested. There isn't a grand amount that the side of Pulse can do right now without actually bringing along a sort of spanner to throw in the works, or even just like swapping out a few of these more fragging heavy operators for some more utility. Things like swapping out that Mozzie that we've got on side for maybe a mute, or even swapping the Warden for a mute and bringing along that mute Mozzie sort of combination, and having that information game be played on the upper levels of the map. Especially considering you're going to a bar gaming site, one that is very, very well favored if you're able to deny information. And I mean, they are going to be bringing along an IQ on the attacking side, and that is going to be very, very good if you're able to keep yourself alive and actually spot out a few of these gadgets. This is where I get worried for the side of Pulse, because even though you're able to keep it even up until this point, you still need this round. If you don't win this round, Pulse is done. However, if Pulse win this round, Sevens is done. This round is make or break for both of these teams. And realistically, after this round, nothing else matters. Whether it's win or lose for either side. Because there is no way that the other team is able to confirm themselves. It is going to be... Well, whoever wins this round moves to Swiss, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't matter where they're positioned or what the round difference is. Mozzie going to be falling very low on HP, but Dern is maintaining his life as he does decide to run himself away. IQ of Ryuji going to be getting very aggressive inside of this Solarium area alongside the Gridlock. The Track Stingers caught out by a magnet by the sounds of things, or maybe that was the flashbang. I'm not too sure. Flores drones coming through onto these blue stairs are going to deal with that blue stairs shield, but no presence inside of the bedroom, and still a minute 30 left to play. They have managed to get themselves a little closer. The canine door is open and Finker's outside of it, droning right now. They have spotted out those one-eyed magnets, and they are just going to be trying to deal with them as best they can. But it looks like Habana is just going to be opening up this wall. They don't really know too much about where this Mozzie's positioned or what he's going to be doing, but they do know he's going to be low on HP. The last few... Well, the last... 70 seconds remaining on the clock right now as an aid goes out and manages to find the kill onto Mankai. That's going to be your top fragger down. Lightsy falls to another. And now we're going to be seeing a 3 versus 5. Pulse really have to pick up the pieces if they're going to be able to win out this round. And it looks like we're going to be going straight into a very site-oriented push for the attackers. We have fallen to this horizontal side. Gridlock going to be making a way in through the corridor. Is she going to be able to win the fight against the Mozzie? Dernis falls. Gridlock not long to follow from the mirror that's going to be hanging around in Mudroom, but she does rotate off and move away onto the ground floor. Also falls. Echo, last man standing, 1v4, has to manage to find this 4K to win, but loses out on the long angle through that little crack there in the door. And Pulse Nation end up losing out. Sevens confirm themselves for Swiss. Wasn't able to speak English there at the end, but I am sick. Leave me be. We will move forward. We're going to switch back to our caster cams right now and have a little talk through the finalities of that game and the scorelines that we have. We have 8-7 for Element and 7-5 in favour. I like the gravestone. In favour of Sevens against Pulse. And what that means is because Sevens were able to confirm a regulation win and get themselves that full 3 points, they have overtaken Pulse on the scoreboard. And on the standings that are going to be coming up on stream very, very shortly, probably already, we are going to be seeing the fact that Pulse Nation have been dropped down into that 5th place position. Sevens have taken 3rd, and that's entirely based on round difference alone against AGM. AGM secured themselves earlier on just by getting a win against Element in overtime. And, well, Minions and Element, as I just brought up their name, are already confirmed anyway. They're 2 of our only 4 teams that have double-digit scores in this group stage so far. And, yeah, not really a lot else to say. I hope you all very much enjoyed the cast. I'm sorry it ended up being a little scuffed on my end, as, like I said, I'm a bit sick. And then my co-caster also had to dip out later on into the cast, so it's a rip. If you want to see more of me, because you know I'm just a class fella and I'm very funny, please follow me. My producers are laughing at me. Please follow me on twitch.tv/Nigel. Just spat everywhere. It's fantastic. Game's over. GG. Thanks for watching. This is stuff.